So USA Today article I'm holding in my hands, the headline, employers try a 4-day workweek program. I've been telling you about this. If you're new to this program, you haven't heard me talk about this, I'll give you the quick skinny. For those of you that have heard me talk about this on the show, I'm going to reveal some of the findings. The United Kingdom had a program billed as the world's largest 4-day workweek trial. 61 companies, 2,900 employees tried this pilot program for 6 months from June 2022 to December 2022. Not every company participating in the program structured their 4-day work week the same way. So while they did a 4-day work week, it was not a uniform application. In other words, not everybody took Fridays off, or not everybody had employees alternating. Only thing that was consistent was they did a 4-day work week based on an 8-hour day. So 32 hours, but companies did it different ways. So the findings are not conclusive enough to say that if you do it this one way, it's super effective. So that's important to point out. It's also important to point out the industries that were involved. They involved marketing and advertising all the way to charities and healthcare. Well, here are the findings. 92% of organizations are going to continue with their 4-day week. This is according to 4-Day Week Global, who piloted the program. It's a nonprofit. Professors from Boston College and Cambridge University were also involved with 4-Day Week Global to lead the research. The number of staff leaving, this is significant, fell by 57% over the 6-month trial. That is substantial as it relates to retention numbers, which right now, retention numbers are just getting hammered by the amount of people. 4 million plus are quitting every month and have been now as we approach 2 years of this. That's a lot of people quitting and changing jobs. A lot of people just moving. So staff leaving fell by 57%. So already you can see through this trial, huge retention numbers. Now, what about revenue and productivity? That's, to me, the real story. Revenue grew by 1.4% on average during the trial for nearly 24 companies that provided enough data. Now, this is where I've got real question marks, and it's based on data. So when I talk about data, folks, I'm going to give you both sides of it. And they had a small number of companies provided enough revenue data, and so I'd like to see more companies. But of the companies that did report the financial data, revenue grew by 1.4%. That's not a mind-blowing growth number in my mind. It's nice that they didn't go backwards during a trial. I think that's the best marks I would give 1.4% growth. Now, another cohort of 24 companies saw revenue increase over 34% from the same period a year prior. So this is a starkly different number. So for whatever reason, they had two groups of essentially 24 companies turn in some numbers. One group saw 1.4% on average. The other, 34%. Business performance and productivity both received an average score of 7.5 out of 10. So when you look at that across the companies, these companies said 92% were going to stay with it. But what they were scoring out of a 10 was a 7.5. Well, that's a C plus, right? Is that fair, Alex? I mean, we get a scale of 1 to 10 is the same to 1 to 100, and we grade on that. And so I think a 75 is a C plus in most places. So here's what I'm saying. This is not a slam dunk. You got 92% saying we want to do it, but how much is emotion playing into this? And pressure from their employees are saying, this was amazing. Because when they score it, some did modestly okay on revenues. We have a lot of others that haven't reported revenues. One group saw a big jump. And I would bet you, and it's not included in this article, that the 34% jump in revenue had certain specifics as it relates to the industry as to how their revenue didn't change for a negative, but actually experienced some positives. And I think that has to do with workflow and the type of work. Not every company can do this, obviously. All right, what about employees? About 90% of employees who participated in this said they definitely want to continue on the 4-day schedule. I mean, that's not surprising. In fact, if there's anything that's surprising is that it was 90%. But 10% are going, I didn't like the rhythm. 55% of the workers in the study reported an increase in their ability at work. That's interesting to me. So maybe this increase in ability is tied to priorities. If you take your world of work and what you do in a 5-day week, and now you have to get it done in a 4-day week, you're going to have to get better at prioritizing so that you have a good and effective workflow, or else the stress of trying to squeeze 5 days of work into 4 days, which we've seen in some of these studies, it becomes too much. So what this says to me is that leaders and workers getting together to say, okay, we're going to move to 4 days a week. We are going to prioritize what is most important for you to get done. And when they do that, leaders do that for workers, and workers go, okay, I'm going to spend 80% of my time on these top 20% of priorities as an example. Then all of a sudden, their abilities are better because they're not multitasking. They're not trying to balance too much. I think that's what this is saying. I can't say that conclusively. I'm trying to draw some things out of this. But if I'm a leader and I'm looking at this 4-day work week and I see this kind of data, there's something for me to learn, whether or not we do a 4-day or 5-day week. What is it about the prioritizing and the efficiency that becomes a win? All right, more on the employees themselves. 71% reported reduced burnout by the end of the trial period. You absolutely got to believe that. No surprise there again. It's kind of a dovetail of what I was just saying. They're not stressed as much. I don't ever want to simplify burnout because there are different causes and different manifestations of burnout on human beings. But if I were to pick one big, giant cause of all burnout, it is stress. It's just a function of who is causing the stress, where is it coming from, and so on and so forth. This is interesting. The program also had an impact on childcare for families. According to the report, it found that the time men spent looking after children increased by more than double that of women. So that's very interesting. Now, I'm just going to point something out that may make some of you uncomfortable, but I think you have to confront this stuff. Some of you are going, well, that's great. Men need to watch their kids more. I don't disagree with that. But the concern I have is that all men are not created equal, and that is not a Thomas Jefferson Declaration of Independence thing. Is that I think some men do very, very well stepping in and helping out more around the house and watching kids, and I think other men do not. And I think men should pull their weight. Let me be clear, but I'm just saying, just because they should and that they could doesn't mean that they're wired for it or that they're built for it, and that could create some real family anxiety as well. So I'm still wait and see on this. See where this goes. A lot to learn still.